Hey, everybody. You're watching, listening, enjoying, loving, reminiscing on. I ran out of verbs, but this is so many sequels.
Adoring.
And I'm Josh. Yeah, adoring.
And I'm Andrew.
I'm Garrett.
Nice.
And I'm David.
Today on the show, we're continuing our adventure into Muppet World with the third movie in the Muppet series, the Muppets Take Manhattan. We skipped over the Great Muppet Caper because.
Did you guys watch that one anyway?
No, maybe I will, but no.
I did.
That's good. But today we're talking about Muppets Take Manhattan. It is a. I was trying to pull it up. Does anyone remember when it came out?
1984.
1984. Came out then, starring, of course, all of your favorite Muppets, with a series of fun cameos, just like the last movie. You know, this one has Elliot Gould is back.
Yep.
As a cameo. We had Brooke Shields, Joan Rivers, Liza Minnelli, and some others. And we don't need to list every single cameo, but, you know, it's got that. And the basic premise of this movie is the Muppets have graduated from college, and they've performed their original musical, Manhattan Melodies, and they decide to take it on the road all the way to Broadway and, you know, just sell the show to a producer like you do. So let's talk about, had anyone not seen this movie before?
I haven't. I have vague memories of it, but
I really don't. I'm sure I have, but I really don't remember anything about it either. Okay, so it's pretty much fresh for all of us then, for the most part. What did everybody think of it? Starting with David.
I thought it was an interesting version of the Muppets because we talked a lot last week about the meta humor and the movie within a movie, and we talked about the breaking the fourth wall. This had none of that. There was no fourth wall breaking. There was no winks and nod to the camera. This was presenting the Muppet characters as characters. It was sort of the most natural, I guess, of the films that we're going to see because they are presented it's presented very straightforward. The humor and a lot of the Muppet gags are there, but it's not quite as over-the-top silly and over-the-top slapstick as most Muppet movies. So I think that's a really interesting decision that they made. I made the choice to also sneak in watching The Great Muppet Caper. I can tell you guys this. I feel like it's a big step up from there, while unfortunately still feeling like a bit of a step down from the Muppet movie. The characters are just as much fun as they always have been. The story itself is not very creative, but I do like all the music, and there are some, I don't know what you call them really, Muppet effects in this movie that are like, whoa, how did they do that? How do they get a bunch of rats skating on butter? How does that work? But overall, I liked it, but I don't think it's the best Muppet movie.
Yeah. Okay. I will talk next then. I will echo your sentiment that it was not the best Muppet movie. I didn't like it at all. I thought it was quite bad. Because it lost. So let me try to pull out parts that I thought were good. I do think that there is a nice story there. In, you know, the Muppets, their whole thing is like trying to become famous via a movie or a show or whatever. They're always trying to like sell their latest idea. So I like that aspect of it. It's something that they hadn't done yet in the movies, to sell a Broadway play. So that's fun. I like that idea. I don't think it was handled super well for a couple reasons. I thought there was a little too much side story action going on it ended up being uninteresting. You know, Kermit and the rats working in the diner didn't do a lot for me. It had one funny moment that I will let Garrett talk about later because he laughed the hardest at it. But other than that, it kind of left me like, you know, this is a Muppet movie that's a little almost too heavily focused on following Kermit around. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with Kermit, but I want some more Muppet action. So there was that. aspect. And then there was the other side story of Piggy stalking Kermit to a really, really disturbing degree. We talked about last time how none of us really like Piggy. Oh my gosh. I'd call the cops on her from after this one. She is awful. She's so awful. Like the abuse, the emotional and physical abuse on Kermit. Ooh. It goes beyond being funny into being like, okay, I'm like concerned for a puppet's well-being now. And then the music was weaker, I thought. There were really no standout tracks to me. I mean, there's that goodbye song they sing that's okay. And they play it again in the credits, so they knew it was their best one. But everything else was... I especially didn't like the entire piece dedicated to rats just singing do 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 over and over again. Yeah. There's a lot of moments like that where I was like, oh, this movie is only an hour and 30 minutes, but it drags hard. So I didn't like it. I'll say that. Next, Andrew, let's go with you. You literally finished it as we started this recording.
Well, the good thing about it was that it ended.
Yeah, okay.
Everything else about it was bad. I kid you not. I would rather have a lobotomy than watch this movie again.
Wow. Well, you didn't watch
That's
it in
harsh.
order, though, did you?
I didn't.
No,
No, I
that's
didn't.
true.
And you know what? I didn't need to.
He popped in while we were watching the end of it,
Yeah.
and then he went home and finished it.
I went home
from the
and
start.
I went home and finished it, and I did a memento where I just watched it backwards, and I couldn't get involved in it. Like, as much as I love the Muppets, I couldn't get involved in this one, and it was just like what is going on here, and why should I even care? And yes, Miss Piggy was disturbing. And Miss Piggy has always been disturbing, and I don't like Miss Piggy at all.
No, I don't either.
And I feel to some degree bad for Kermit.
What do you mean to some degree? You should feel completely bad for Kermit.
I mean, like, he can't get out of that relationship with Miss Piggy, and and I don't know how he can do it by this point. But like, the thing is that like, I found the songs boring. Honestly,
Yeah, I don't
I found
like
them
the
very
songs.
boring.
I didn't love them.
I found just like I couldn't get involved in it. I couldn't get involved in the humor, the gags. This movie's a piece of shit. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it.
That's not true, but okay.
Oh no, it's pretty
Funny.
bad.
Let's move on to Garrett.
I don't know that you're gonna want to.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I liked it. I thought it was better than the first one. No,
he's
I'm kidding.
lying.
David used the word interesting. I'll use the word bad also. There was no heart at all in this movie. The closest thing they got to any kind of heart and connection was that goodbye song. I remember thinking, okay, maybe this is the part where it will pick up. And it did until that song ended. And then it just went back to not having much of anything to deliver. I didn't feel any kind of connection. I think that because it was so straightforward, it took away from that, because when you have a situation that is Muppets, you expect and almost want that over-the-topness. And I didn't get that. And they tried to present it in too much of a reality to where I felt it was incredibly disconnected. And yeah, I don't really feel like you got anything from the other Muppets at all. They were there and they wrote the letters, but once they all left because they felt like they were dragging down Kermit, you didn't get anything from them other than those maybe 5 minutes each for the letter, but there was nothing from them. And what really makes the Muppets is the ensemble. I think for me, what I would have liked to have seen is, so we start the movie with them performing their Manhattan melodies at college, And then I'll let Josh say it. Josh, go ahead.
Oh, I get to say, wait. Oh, yes. My favorite line in the whole movie was, and I'm probably paraphrasing, but my favorite line was, "Hey, Kermit, maybe next we'll see you on Broadway."
And then after that, they were all like, "That's a great idea." But throughout this whole thing, Kermit was also saying he felt like there was something missing from the play. So what I think would have been a better movie is them working together to try to figure out what that thing is, not them just upending Kermit and leaving him by himself, because that gets rid of that ensemble and they're no longer working together as Muppets. You get Kermit in a situation where he's depressed. Nobody wants a depressed Kermit. That's not fun. Nobody wants a stalker Miss Piggy. That's not fun. I mean, a good portion of this movie was just Miss Piggy screaming loudly, like more than normal. Like, for example, the cameo of Joan Rivers. Piggy was working at a makeup counter with Joan Rivers, and they just screamed for a good 5 minutes. Like, that's all they did.
There's a story behind that.
Was it that nobody knew their lines, so they just kept screaming? Because that's what it was.
You're in the neighborhood.
What is it? Yeah, what is it?
So apparently, Frank Oz, who plays Miss Piggy and directed this movie, they brought Joan Rivers in for this little brief cameo scene. It goes beyond cameo almost to the point. But apparently, they just had no real chemistry together. Like, they just couldn't get it figured out. And they both wanted to. It wasn't like they disliked each other. They just couldn't get, like, the back and forth right. Yeah. So Frank Oz, he paused the production, ordered in a bunch of tequila and other alcohols. They got sauced and then did the scene. And that's the scene that's in the movie.
Okay, well, that's funny. That's funny.
That is
funny. I enjoy that. It doesn't make the scene better, but it at least adds some character to it, and I like that. That's funny.
Yeah, and it's that's not that. There's a couple of different interesting behind the scenes stories to this, but go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, I'm glad that you told that story. That's a good story, at least. But then it happens again whenever she follows Kermit and Jenny, and she sees them hug. And first of all, you've got the construction worker stereotype, catcalling Miss Piggy, which is uncomfortable to start with for many different reasons. It does not hold up well. And then after that, you've got another 2-minute scene of Miss Piggy just screaming while she's slamming the pipe on the other pipe. So it's just noise. And it really, for me, just does not have that Muppet-esque heart. You even get a chance to see some of the Muppet Babies, and it was bad. That was as close as we got to an ensemble part, having them back together. And it just, because the rest of the movie was so poor, did not hold up for me. I just could not find that same connection of lovable Muppets.
You mean you couldn't find a rainbow connection?
Wah, wah, wah.
Josh is gone.
He did that on purpose.
I did that on purpose. I wasn't annoyed by that joke.
I'll say to sort of address some of the things. It's unfortunate because for me, like I said, when I said the movie is interesting, it's kind of, for me, it's interesting for all of the reasons that are outside of the actual movie. Because I felt like, again, the story is not overly compelling. It's not, bad. It's not even unrealistic. This exact same movie would work without the Muppets. You could just tell a story about a bunch of college kids who go to Broadway and they go their separate ways and they write letters and they're all doing crazy things and they get back together for their big show. Like, it's a very plausible plot, and that plausibility might be what makes it not as much fun when you compare it to what you expect from the Muppets. A lot of the, like what I talked about, the fact that they don't break the fourth wall, the fact that it's much more a natural story, that's interesting to me, but it doesn't really go to the point of like really exciting or compelling. I will say, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. There's a couple of songs in this I actually do like. Okay, I like Together Again. That's a really catchy one. That's what opens the movie, and that's what gets them back together. And I like the He'll Make Me Happy, She'll Make Me Happy song at the end. Those are both fine. I think that you can't take no for an answer is good. I just kind of wish anybody other than Dr. Teat sang it because I can't understand a word Dr. Teat says.
You meant Andrew's favorite character, Dr. T?
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew's favorite character from last week. Here's one of the other things I'll tell you guys. So you guys skipped The Great Muppet Caper, which was their second movie.
Correct.
You can thank me now because I watched The Great Muppet Caper. This might have affected my decision making here. This is a godsend compared to that movie.
Oh wow.
That movie had 3 straight Miss Piggy musical numbers.
Oh God.
They had a Miss Piggy musical number, then they had about 8 minutes of moderate story play, more Miss Piggy, about 15 minutes of stuff, and then another Miss Piggy water musical number. It was an absurd amount of Piggy. And by comparison, this Piggy is actually quite likable.
Wow.
This Piggy is so toned down compared to Great Muppet Piggy or Great Muppet Caper Piggy and most of the other Piggies we get.
Whoa.
I will say that Miss Piggy's most annoying feature or most annoying character trait is just how overbearing she is. And she's pretty overbearing here, just kind of constantly needling Kermit to get married when clearly he's not necessarily super comfortable about the idea. But I like that here they actually made an effort to make Miss Piggy somewhat relatable. Like she has more realistic goals. She's not wanting to be like a mega massive movie star. She just wants to like do this play, marry Kermit, and have a happy life. Like that's like all she really wants, as opposed to just being like, Kermit, why are we not famous? And like getting like all angry with him like you see in every other Miss Piggy interpretation. So I like that. She is a little over, but again, the overbearing qualities are too much.
It's hard. I will go back to what I said last week about the Piggy Kermit relationship in that it is just incredibly toxic. I mean, this movie ends with her trying to convince an amnesiac Kermit that he wants to get married and have children. Like, that's what you want, Kermit. You want to marry me. You want to have my children. Don't you remember? That's what you want. Remember this, Kermit. This is what you want. And then it ends with her switching out Gonzo in the play where they get married with a real minister who actually, to my assumption, marries them. And Kermit is stuck in this display of, okay, I'm trying to sell this show. It's opening night. I can't go against the play. But if I go about this, that's a real minister and we're going to be married. And you can see it as he comes to that realization of, I either am forced to marry her and make the show successful, or I don't marry her because I don't want to, and I mess up the show. Well, I guess I'm going to marry her. That's the way the movie ends.
This is a situation that totally, I think qualifies for an annulment. I don't think Kermit signed anything. There's no marriage certificate. This is all unrecognized type stuff. And I'll say that's for me. The movie was doing actually really fine for me. Like it wasn't great. It wasn't just unwatchable. It takes a left turn when for no reason they just decide, and then Kermit gets amnesia. Yeah. And then like it feels like they threw that in there for no real reason, and then the movie just ends really abruptly. Mm-hmm. It's like in editing they were like, okay, we have another 45 minutes of the movie, right? No, we have 15 more minutes. We only shot 15 more minutes of footage. Oh. Just end it.
Yeah, it ended poorly. It was just.
It's not a great third act.
No. Josh and I were watching it, and we had to stop. Like we got 45 minutes in, and we're amazed that it was not more than that, and we had to turn it off. I did like Jenny. I thought Jenny was the best character.
Jenny was a good character.
She was a friend. She was supportive. She was trying to get Kermit to continue to sell that play. Very helpful whenever he didn't have a friend. All his friends just left for a stupid reason, like a real stupid reason. Kermit got frustrated.
Yeah, well, they left for a somewhat understandable reason, I thought.
No.
Kermit, they feel like, and Kermit, they're not wrong, they feel like they put all this pressure on Kermit, and he's clearly stressing the heck out about it, which is what they've been doing Kermit's whole life.
Agreed.
And but so like they're like, you know what? It's not fair of us to put all of our hopes and dreams on Kermit and just expect him to figure it all out for us.
I agree with that. Where I don't agree is that doesn't mean that you just up and leave. You all want to be a part of this play. How about you just pull your damn weight and stop trying to make Kermit do everything? Don't just leave him.
That's
and
true.
now he's deserted and depressed. And Jenny's just there trying to be a friend. And then Piggy comes in, who also left Kermit and is like, oh, this woman is taking my Kermit.
I think
And
she
it's
left.
just, no.
I didn't know.
Mwah?
So Jenny and Pete, really, Pete was very helpful. He was nice. I didn't like the whole thing where he was like, is people, is potatoes, is tomatoes. That whole thing, I thought I was having a stroke because I was like, is this real? I don't understand. But I did enjoy those two. I thought they were good additions.
I like the addition of Rizzo in this movie. This is his first actual role outside of the Muppet Show, and this is the first time that Rizzo's the type of character we see here, where he's kind of like a New York wise guy. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of really the first time we get to see the Rizzo we'd all come to know. And I thought he was fine. It was kind of an interesting way to introduce him, or I say interesting. It's interesting in retrospect because he's not like one of the Muppets. He's just like some Muppet they happen to meet. And Rizzo was always one of my favorites as a kid, and we'll get more of him next week.
I will say that Rizzo, Rizzo's appearance is comical. I don't know why. I just find all the rats like they're funny to look at. At least I do. But like in this, I'm like I don't know what the deal is.
Andrew, Garrett, did you have a favorite part that Josh was talking about?
Yes.
It has to do with Rizzo to an extent. It's where Kermit is trying to get a job, and Rizzo brings in his whole family and is like, we need jobs too. And so like Pete is like, let's see, I wrote it down. He's like, a frog wants a job, rats wants a job. Who's next? Penguins? And then the penguins jump in and they go, hey, can we have a job? And they all say no. And then the penguin, he gets this like, this kind of like stunned, shocked attitude, and he just goes, well, excuse us for living, and then just leaves. And I thought that was really funny. The way that he looked when he said it and the way that he said it, that was kind of the over-the-topness that I was looking for throughout this whole thing. And that was the most over-the-top that I felt like they got, was that one line from that penguin, who I thought was the standout character of this whole movie.
Yeah, that was one of the more Muppety Muppet moments. Mm-hmm. Of this movie, was just like saying something off the wall, and then it actually happens. That's the closest you really get in a lot of these scenarios. I do like at the end we get some Sesame Street cameos. We get Bert and Ernie and a Cookie Monster, and a bunch of others are in the background. That was fun.
There was also a brief Big Bird cameo when they were as Muppet Babies. Somebody had a little Big Bird doll.
Yeah, it's true. This was actually the film. This is actually the debut of the Muppet Babies. Their TV show would come out. The Muppet Babies cartoon would come out about 2 months after this movie. So this was, and actually, if I read this correctly, that was the point of introducing this Muppet Baby sequence, was to put it out there, the idea that Muppets were once babies, and kind of a backdoor pilot for the cartoon, if you will.
Yeah.
And they look great. It's kind of funny. I don't remember ever seeing the Muppet Babies as felt real characters. But a lot of fun. And I used to love watching Muppet Babies as a kid.
Same here.
Yeah. Muppet Babies was the ish.
I got in trouble with Muppet Babies because, as you may or may not remember, Kermit's catchphrase of sorts on that show was he would say sheesh, whenever something bad would happen to him. And so I started saying sheesh like all the time. And my dad was like, you need to stop saying that. And I was like, why? He goes, you're very close to getting to a very different word. And I don't want you even getting that close. And I was like, oh, sheesh. He goes.
That's funny. Also, the amnesia storyline is ridiculous and
baffling why they did that.
But what really got me is the doctor, the whole interaction with the doctor.
That was so weird.
It was. She was like putting his legs up by his head, which was weird. And then she was like, I think I don't even remember the name, but she made up, I think that this
Don
is
Francisco.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, I don't feel Italian. And she was like, well, that was a shot in the dark. And then she just goes, I think your case is hopeless. You may as well just go out and make a new life. What? That's not how doctors work.
It seemed like a bit that was written to be in front of an audience, because if it was on the Muppet Show and they had like an audience that was watching, and somebody was stretching him all over and they were doing all this, but like people would be laughing because it would be like a kind of a weird physical comedy bit. Because it's a movie, you're just sitting there going,
yeah.
And Kermit's sitting in this position that I was like, man, if Kermit was like a human man, there'd be like some real showage situation going on here.
I do want to comment real quick about director Frank Oz.
Okay.
Because it's interesting that Frank Oz, his whole career, at least the beginnings of his career, was being a puppet master. We'll just say that. Because, he had all these voices. He's Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
He's Yoda. And he went from that to directing films. And he's done several movies. I mean, he's done several... I'm trying to think what let me pull up his list, because I just read it. Like, he's done What About Bob? He's done he did
Something About Mary.
Yeah. He did one of my favorite movies,
like that.
Well, not one of my favorite movies, but a more comical movie called Death at a Funeral.
Mm-hmm.
But he's done a slug of other things that just...
Little Shop of Horrors.
Say what?
Little Shop of Horrors.
He did Little Shop of Horrors.
That's
yeah.
a good movie.
Let me bring it up here, because he's somewhat famous. I mean, he's somewhat known, but I feel like he's not a very good director, and just better at being a puppeteer. Yeah, he did.
He's kind of an all-around guy, and it's possible that directing isn't his strongest suit. He's appeared as a live-action actor in a few movies too. Most recently, he appeared in Knives Out as the lawyer that read the will. But I don't know. I haven't watched the full breadth of his stuff to really kind of comment on how he is a director.
He directed Indian in the Cupboard.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It was a great movie.
I remember that movie.
And that's about it. That's about all I can comment on. I'm just like, I just find it interesting that he went from like a puppeteer to maybe a B-list director.
He did The Dark Crystal. That movie's amazing.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
yeah, Dark Crystal with Jim Henson. It should be noted that this movie came fairly shortly on the heels of The Dark Crystal and The Great Muppet Caper, which Jim Henson and Frank Oz. It was Jim Henson directed The Great Muppet Caper, then they directed Dark Crystal together, and then Frank Oz directed this. The Muppets were really, or I should say, Jim Henson Studios was really cranking out stuff during this time period. And I feel like The Muppets Take Manhattan in areas really gets the worst end of it. Although this did perform better than Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal's pretty, cold
Mm-hmm.
film, I reckon.
It was a very strange film at the time.
Yeah.
It's good, though. Better than Muppets Take Manhattan.
Josh, anything else from you?
I don't really think so. I mean, I mostly just kind of feel like this movie didn't quite live up to what it could have been, because I do still think there is a story there that maybe just kind of got lost. It's a little like, it felt a little more childish, I think, than the original first Muppets movie. Yes, of course, and they are children's films, but the Muppets had something for everyone, and I don't know if the Muppets Take Manhattan has enough for everyone, and that may be ultimately what gives me pause. Because I also agree that I wish it had some of that fourth wall breaking moments that the other movies have. Because that's Muppets at their best as far as I'm concerned. Later in the Muppets' career, they do the 2011 Muppets movie that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
That's heavy on that stuff, and it's great. And then the Muppets ABC sitcom is heavy on the meta stuff. It's great. I love meta Muppets. There's no
Yeah,
Meta
the
Muppets in here.
Funny thing about the Muppets on ABC, that was very much like the Muppets were the characters, and they
Yes.
played themselves as actors. Like this was a situation where like you could argue that like the Muppets are just playing themselves in a movie here, but they're not breaking the fourth wall. They're just playing.
Right.
They're just playing they're just doing a regular movie. Whereas the Great Muppet Caper does this. Muppets Most Wanted does this, where they're like the whole intro to the movie is like, we're making a movie, and then they're like, now we're gonna be characters, and they like throw these character things on, and they'll reference movie tropes and stuff like that. This doesn't have really any of that, and that's
No.
so it doesn't feel like it fits. But I guess it was worth a try.
Yeah. Like it's I hope that this is the worst Muppets movie we watch for this show, not just for personal reasons, but because I want the Muppets to do well, because I like them. But even the best actors do some bad movies every now and then, or some maybe less good movies. And so this is just a piece in the timeline of the Muppets where maybe they just didn't have a great movie. Maybe it's on the bad to okay scale.
And that's okay. You gotta give them a pass.
Hey, this isn't rocket science, making movies, first off. And then, this is like a whole unique genre within itself. There are not a lot of movies premised around the idea of puppeteering.
But then, I did some looking around, and it appears that a lot of people do actually love this movie for reasons I'll never understand, but they exist.
Mm-hmm. It's fairly well it's highly rated for the most part.
Roger Ebert gave it quite a good review.
Mm-hmm.
He's was very well respected, especially at the time. And where did it go? I lost it. Yeah, Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
I think that was kind of the consensus of the time, was like it was pretty good, but it wasn't like as good,
I did learn a fun thing.
I want it now.
I did learn a fun thing while I was cruising the Wikipedia page, that there was actually almost a follow-up show to this movie recently that would have been on Disney Plus, created by Josh Gad. It was going to be called Muppets Live Another Day, and it was going to take place after the events of Muppets Take Manhattan. And it was basically going to focus on, they've kind of disbanded after this film, but then Ralph disappears, Garrett's favorite Muppet, and they're all going to band back together, I guess, to find Ralph. But there was some change in leadership, and they ended up canceling the project. Yeah, which is a bummer because it sounds like it could have been good.
Yeah, now we have Muppets Now. Yeah,
yes, and Muppets Now, to comment on very shortly, because just in reference to this, is not what I quite want it to be, but I think Muppets of Another Day might have been what I want from them.
I just wish they'd bring back the ABC show.
So I would trade Muppets Now for Muppets of Another Day.
I assume Muppets Tonight and Muppets and the original Muppet Show probably have some kind of like music licensing problems.
Probably.
And
come on though, like Disney can't pay for it.
Yeah, they'll. I assume they'll find a way one day, and it'll be a big thing. Muppets, the Muppet Show, Muppets Tonight coming. Muppets Tonight is great.
Is Disney hurting for money?
Well, actually, right now, yes.
Much like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like
what did they lose? Like $1 billion in theme park sales alone?
Yeah, I mean, the compared to other theme park businesses, me and my wife talk about this quite often, is that Disney at least has a ton of other revenues. Like it's
true.
It's even smaller. Like the amount we actually know about in terms of what Disney has ownership of or rights to or some kind of connection to is smaller than we even realize.
Sure.
So like Disney has a lot of other revenue sources coming in. So like for the most part, they can stay afloat. Even Disney Plus, like it costs them barely anything to run Disney Plus other than paying for rights. And then like, everybody's just they got over like 60 million subscribers now. So hopefully one day
they're not even a year old yet.
No. And so hopefully it generates getting Muppets Tonight and Muppets and the Muppet Show on there. But we'll see.
I also feel like, just my personal opinion, there's got to be a reason for this. I think if Disney wasn't really kind of desperate to get some money turning again, there's no way they would put Mulan on streaming for premiere or early access.
Okay.
They would have held on to it if they didn't have a meeting that was like, we got to get some money going.
Yeah, I mean, they got to get something for it. Then they can. We'll talk. Well, we can talk about that on another show.
Yeah. But yeah, they need money. They don't need money. They need money in their mind. In my mind, they have plenty.
They're hurting for the money.
As for this show, we actually did you guys watch this on Prime Video?
Yes.
So I might actually have an answer to that as well, because as you know, most of the Muppet movies are on Disney Plus, with the exception of this movie and Muppets from Space. And I think, from what I can tell here, the reasoning for that is that unlike a lot of the other Muppet productions, this movie was released through TriStar Pictures and not produced by the company that produced all the other films. And TriStar still actually owns or co-owns the home video rights. So they co-own it with the Jim Henson Company, but unfortunately that still won't allow them to put it anywhere else. So they're the ones that release all the DVDs for this or any new versions of this that come out. And so Disney, I think, has all the rights from the ITC productions. So unfortunately, this one and Muppets from Space, which is the last Muppet movie, really under the I don't know what you want to call it, the new way that they do the Muppets now. But it was the last one for a long time. They're only available on Prime.
Okay.
Or if you have the disc, if you go out and physically buy the movie somewhere. All right. Well, do we want to move on?
Wow,
Talk about box office and stuff?
Yeah, I just stumbled upon. Are we going to cover Muppets from Space?
We are not.
Okay, good. Then let me just tell you the cameo list for Muppets from Space.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So Muppets from Space is 1999, so that has to set the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got David Arquette, Kathy Griffin, Mr. Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Who is credited as Hollywood Hogan.
They probably had him as that character.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta.
Oh, that's good.
And Josh Jackson and Katie Holmes from Dawson's Creek.
Oh, timely.
What a flashback.
Very.
I don't
that whole cameo list is very 1999.
Yeah.
David Arquette.
Yeah. And I might watch Muppets from Space just to see that, because I honestly
that's my plan.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
It's also on Prime Video, and so I was going to watch it after we watched next week's production, just to kind of get that middle movie in, to kind of see, because it does give you a full sense of like how the movie's evolved over time. All right, well, if we got nothing else, we can just move on to the box office and our game to end the show.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Well, one quick thing, too, I do want to mention. There was actually the Muppets Take Manhattan was adapted into a Marvel comic book in 1984. It was a 3-issue book and came out in November of 84. So that's kind of interesting. Okay. So anyway, the Muppets movie debuted the weekend of July 13th in 1984. Not a stellar opening. It opened number 5. With $4.4 million. Number 1 that weekend was Ghostbusters in its 6th week, bringing in 9.7. At number 2, you had Gremlins, bringing in 6.1 in its 6th week. So 2 movies that have been basically killing it for a month and a half.
This came out in what month? I'm sorry.
July.
Okay.
So Gremlins, noted for being one of the movies that sparked the PG-13 rating. The Last Starfighter came in at number 3 in its opening weekend, brought in $6 million. And at number 4, the original, The Karate Kid, bringing in 4.7 in its 4th week. Just underneath Muppets Take Manhattan, in that number 5 spot, was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in its 8th week. So a very low finish for the Muppets overall that weekend. The Muppets would go on to make $25 million in the United States over this is somewhat disputed between 2 different sources I use, It's either 22 or 24-week run. I don't know why that's inconsistent there, but 25 million. Interestingly enough, at just $25 million, that was still the second highest grossing Muppet movie at the time. So not as bad as it could have been. Let's move on here to the overall for the year 1984, which we've been to a time or two. The number one movie in the United States. Make sure I have this right here. Yep, this is right. So the highest grossing movie for 1984 in the United States was Beverly Hills Cop, bringing in $234 million. And number two,
monster.
Huh?
That movie was a monster in terms of making.
Yeah, it. Am I reading? No, never mind. At number two, the aforementioned Ghostbusters with $229 million. At number three, Temple of Doom, $179 million. At number four, Gremlins with $148. And at number five, The Karate Kid. So, unfortunately for Muppets Take Manhattan, it was going up against four of the five biggest movies of that year in the weekend that it came out. Mm-hmm. Let's look here. Where did the Muppets finish? The Muppets finished in the 39 spot, just above the Nightmare, just above A Nightmare on Elm Street. So that should give you some kind of interesting context. Wow. Nightmare on Elm Street, number 40 that year, just above the Muppets Take Manhattan, is a movie called The Cotton Club.
Yeah, that's
Andrew would know The Cotton Club. Good Lord.
I was gonna joke that Andrew would know this, but I thought, no, every time I ever make that joke, he doesn't know it.
It's a Francis Ford Coppola movie that failed very badly.
Well, there you go. And then worldwide numbers for 1984, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom actually jumps up to that number one spot, but the rest of the five is the same. Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Karate Kid. Some other big movies in 1984. Police Academy, The Terminator, Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock came out that year. Purple Rain, Amadeus. I'm not going to mention that movie because I don't like it.
Know what it is. Can you spell it?
I don't care.
It's Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh.
Red Dawn.
I'm surprised you even have an opinion on Revenge of the Nerds.
I don't. We'll get into it if we ever do Revenge of the Nerds and whatever the sequel to Revenge of the Nerds was called. It's not. I don't like it.
Revenge of the Nerds 2.
It makes me wildly uncomfortable. The movie Revenge of the Nerds.
I've heard it does not stand up well. That was me.
It does not hold up in any sense. It's very bad. It's very bad.
I believe it.
So I think that's it. Is that all the stats I read off? Andrew, what was the Oscar winner for 1984?
Amadeus.
There you go. So that's it.
Let me guess, Andrew, you've never seen it.
No, I love Amadeus.
Amadeus. Andrew, I think you won the game last week, so you're running the letterbox game.
He did.
Let's do it.
All right. Muppets Take Manhattan. What is it? Let's see. What is everybody's score?
Well, I'm going to say 2.9.
Josh, 2.9?
Yeah.
Garrett or David?
I'm going to guess 3.2.
Oh. So Josh, 2.9. David, 3.2.
Man, I don't want to be sandwiched between you two. I was going to say 3.1.
You don't have to be. You could be higher or lower.
Yeah, you can get 4.0.
I don't think it'll be that high. I think that because it's the Muppets, people will give it more leeway than I am willing to do whenever we get to my rating. But okay, fine. I'll jump it to 3.5. If David was going to go, because I was going to do 3.1, and I don't want to be sandwiched, so I'll just do 3.5.
Cool.
Okay, so Josh 2.9, David 3.2, Garrett 3.5. Okay. The letterboxed score, user rating score for the Muppets Take Manhattan. The winner this week is Garrett with 3.4.
Wow, what?
3.4. Wow, okay.
Even. Oh, wow. I thought I was going to be way off. I figured it'd be closer to 3.
I
Nope.
really thought it was going to be somewhere between 3.0 and 3.5. That was
Yeah.
what I was pretty sure on. I just shot for the middle.
Wow. Okay. Well, cool.
Another big win for Garrett.
I give it a 2, and that's because it's the Muppets. That was me. That was the Muppet bump for me. Was giving it a 2, which
gave
is
it a 2.
disappointing on my scale.
I give it a 2 as well. I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again.
It's a 2 for me as well.
Yeah, it's a 3 from me. It's it's good, but it's not great. This movie would be fine if you showed it if you showed it to a kid, they would love it. That's kind of who it's for. It's for, a kid between 1 and 10. And it'll be perfectly fine for them.
I have been told that I have a mentality of a 10-year-old. Does that count?
You have something of a 10-year-old.
We're looking at a dead middle 2.25.
Better than nothing, I guess.
Might as well go up to it. Can we rate it? We can't rate it 2.2. It's just 2 or 2.5.
No,
right?
I have to do 2 or 2.5. Yep.
Let's just throw it up to a 2.5.
Okay, you convinced me.
I'll let you guys win on Iron Man 2, I think.
There you go. Okay. So what are we gonna do next week?
Oh, so next week, you should definitely join us because we're going to be doing what I think is probably one of Garrett's favorites, and that's Muppet Treasure Island.
Tim Curry, baby.
It is. We're going to the 90s. We're not going all the way to the end of the 90s with the Muppets from space. Unfortunately, this means that we're not going to get to see my favorite Muppet character ever when we do these movies. But we are going to get to see what I think is one of the movies I had the most fun with watching in the 90s.
Agreed.
Muppet Treasure Island.
A movie that Andrew's never seen.
Good.
I'm just gonna
Hey,
point it out every time I
watched it. I watched it again last year, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I forgot most of what actually happens in the movie.
It's been, I think the last time that I watched it, I don't remember how old I was, but I feel like it was around the 4th of July. And it was just on TV at my grandpa's little lake trailer where we go for the 4th of July. And it was on. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I don't know how many years ago that was. So I'm excited to revisit this one.
All right.
Excellent. Well, then we will be back next time with Muppets Treasure Island. Or Muppet Treasure Island. It's not plural.
Yeah, that's right. Muppet Treasure Island.
Muppet Treasure Island. Find us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Search So Many Sequels. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet. Please subscribe. And check out our podcast feed as well so you can listen to this exact same show in the car on your way to wherever you're going. We're on all the apps. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher.
SoundsTooth.
SoundsTooth. Yeah.
SoundsTooth. I didn't want to be left out.
So,
yeah. And you know what? Hey, go to our Facebook page or go to our Instagram. Let us know what you want to see on the show. Not just what you want to see in terms of movies, but what you'd like to see us do. We're trying to do new stuff all the time. Let us know what you want to see more of.
Yep, that would be great. All right, well, we'll be back next time with Muppet Treasure Island. Until then.